especially in light of what we discussed in the previous session. Where there are times that where you feel strongly about something, don't ask questions, just go and do it. You feel the Jewish nation needs something. Don't allow others to put a damper on it, to discourage you. Just get on with it. You're relying so much on yourself. We find that David HaMelech what is the word that is used to describe what he was like? Chasid. Ki chasid oni, he says. So if you really want the details of what chasidus is, I'm not referring to the movement called chasidus. Chasidus in the eyes of Chazal. You can look at your Mesillat Yesharim. Essentially, the Mesillat Yesharim divides his entire sefer into two parts. Everything up until chasidus is what turns you into a tzadik. Past that point, you're a chasid. What does that mean? A tzadik means you're perfect. A tzadik means you're perfect. A chasid means you're better than perfect. A tzadik means total perfection in every aspect of your behavior. You don't tolerate within yourself any imperfection. If you slip, you immediately do tshuva. That's tzaddik. Chasid is beyond that. Going beyond what's required, because perhaps Hashem wants it. And as a way of safeguarding your being a tzaddik. And that's the second half of Mesillat Yesharim that takes us all the way up to the point of prophecy of Tchias HaMeisim. David HaMelech is chasid. It's obvious throughout the entire Sefer of Tehillim that with all of his suffering, and he had his share, what was it that bothered him? Keli, Keli, lama azavtani. Hashem, why have you abandoned me? The suffering was Hashem's way of expressing distance. And that pained him. The medium by which Hashem chose to communicate an estrangement was secondary. It was his feeling of a loss of that closeness. The whole Tillim is singing Hashem's praises, yearning for more closeness. And mourning whatever loss of closeness to Hashem there was. Leadership is not just a collection of talents and passion. There's got to be a purity of character. One has got to know that what he lives for is closeness to Hashem and kiddush Shem Shamayim. Otherwise, you cannot trust your judgment, and there's no reason why your followers should follow you trusting your judgment. Leadership is responsibility. If your own character is in question, how can you be trusted with that? So in the previous session, I stressed the passion. And yes, you feel strongly about something. Go for it. You see a need in the Jewish nation, and you feel you've got the solution. Go for it. But especially when it's not necessarily what anyone else is thinking or doing. You've got to be able to trust that it's coming from the right place. And for that, you've really got to do your homework and your soul searching. You've got to make sure that you're for real. We spoke so much of how the very first quality necessary is anava, humility, which we defined as it's about the cause and not about the person. You've got to know how real you are with that. Is that the case? Or are you fooling yourself? You sort of like the idea of being in the limelight? You sort of like the idea of going down in history? And your cause is the way to make that happen? You've got to challenge your own integrity. Make sure you're being honest with yourself. And it's got to be reflected in your behavior. Now, if you're going to wait till you reach perfection, even if it happens, but by then you'll probably be too old to do anything. We're not talking perfection. We're talking integrity. We're talking about being for real. We're talking about really caring, and that's where it's coming from. But the only way you can trust your integrity is if that's reflected in every other aspect of your life. Simple terms, you can't call yourself a leader if you're dishonest in business. You can't call yourself a leader or accept upon yourself any kind of leadership responsibility if your dealings with others are not so straightforward. You've always got to be right, even when you're wrong. But you're not open to criticism. When you're insulted, rather than being thankful, when people point out shortcomings, they're not for real. There's too much of a you there that doesn't belong there. Yes, you can make mistakes, but you got to be honest about them. If you're self-righteous, you're not a leader. You've got to maintain a level of morality and ethics of the highest caliber. I'm not trying to discourage you. On the contrary, you feel something has to get done, you want to do it. Great motivation for pushing yourself, for doing your soul searching, for really growing in whom you are as a person. Above all, your integrity, your consistency. A very important part of this is self-control. Because one who lives outside of self-control is so filled with biases. When you have needs, when psychologically, emotionally, you can't let go of stuff, there are things you've got to have. You're biased. Your perspective is going to be jaded. How can you be trusted as a leader? You're going to want things to turn out a certain way because for one reason or another you need it. It's got to be truth at any expense. Just cannot be. When there's corruption, there's no leadership. The Gemara tells us to die in a judge. Should now allow himself to have a Talmud, a close student, who he knows is crooked. Because it will definitely affect his own thinking. Which means that not only must you demand this of yourself, you've got to make sure that the people around you are like this too. It's going to affect you. You've got to be a truth seeker. You've got to hang out with truth seekers. Otherwise, they'll convince you otherwise. One cannot underestimate the power, the influence that the people around us have on us. Obviously, the society's social conditioning is so dangerous. Our thinking could be totally off. We never challenge it because everyone else thinks that way. But it does not have to be a whole society, just your circle of friends. The source to this. First, the Rama mentions it. It's interesting, the Sadmarov used to quote the pasuk at the beginning of Parshas Bo. The pasuk reads, Ki ani hichpadti es libo v'esleiv avodav. Hashem tells Moshe that Paro will not let you go in order that I be able to have an opportunity to perform more miracles. L'man revos nofsosai. So he says, I've hardened Paro's heart and the hearts of his servants. So he asked, why did Hashem have to harden the hearts of the servants? Wasn't hardening the heart of Paro good enough? And he says, had he not hardened the hearts of the servants, the fact that Hashem hardened his heart would have been insufficient. Even if Hashem himself would have hardened Paro's heart, his servants would have convinced him otherwise. Because that's what it's like when you surround yourself with people, their influence on you is massive. You want to maintain integrity, you have to surround yourself with people who are truth seekers, who are honest. They too must be open to hearing criticism. There's no such thing as leadership without integrity. That includes lifestyle. One's personal life. If he can't take responsibility for himself, he's going to take responsibility for others. And he can't just be like everybody else. It's got to be a lot better. The way he deals with his family. So yes, leadership involves doing things often on one's own initiative without the approval of people bigger than himself, because he knows it's right. But he must first establish for himself his own credentials in being honest. Now, along with that, obviously comes a need to know lots of Torah and to make sure that whatever you're doing adheres to what Torah commands. There's only one source to right and wrong: the Creator himself, and it's in the Torah. You got to make sure that you know Torah, you know halacha, adhere to it, take it seriously, every detail of it. That's taken for granted. By the time we get to chasidus, one has already reached that point. The Vilna Gaon is known to have said, he heard them referring to him as tzadik chasid mi Vilna. And he said, I'm only a tzadik, not a chasid. I fulfill every halacha, but nothing more than that. Of his brother, the author of Malos HaTorah, of his brother, he said, he's a chasid. I'm only a tzaddik. That's what the Gross said. Kept every bit of halacha. Knew every bit of halacha. And that's before being a chasid. David HaMelech, Malchus, true leadership in the Jewish nation. For that being tzaddik is not enough, you got to be chasid. So certainly the tzidkus has to be there. No games. You want to be a leader, you got to be very strict with yourself. Make sure that you're fulfilling every last detail of halacha. To the best of your ability. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm not trying to dissuade you. I'm just adding that when you've got the passion, go for it, but then make demands on yourself. Your study here, we want to inspire you, we want to incite you. We want you to feel like you want to make changes, the future of humanity, by changing the state of the Jewish people. And it's for this reason we also want to make sure that you get a comprehensive education in Torah. Because without it, empowering you and inciting you without giving you the grounding of Torah is creating monsters. They're trying to create Frankensteins here. There's got to be the knowledge and the discipline to make sure that you're coming from the right place and it's in line with the will of Hashem. So the more you're inspired to do, the more that should drive you to do your best in your study. Become the most knowledgeable Jew you can be. Then you can take bold decisions. Do what hasn't been done before. Do when others discourage you. Because you know you're right. You've done your soul searching over and over. And you know your Torah. It's a necessity. The leader of the generation doesn't necessarily have to be the most learned Jew of the generation, but he's got to be well learned. Otherwise, you never know where you're headed and where you're taking people. So that's a must. So yes, ki chasid ani. King David, of whom all of Melucha kingdom in Klal Yisrael is supposed to come from, all the way to Melech HaMashiach. His number one trait is chasid. Know your Torah. Make demands. Make demands on yourself. Take full control of yourself. Then you could lead, then you can fight, then you can change the course of history. Hopefully, we're starting you all off on a path that will give you the passion, the integrity, and all the tools you need to become that person. Then you can go with it. Then you can go and fight for Klal Yisrael. Then you can make the difference. Hashem should help this happen and certainly prevent us from overlooking our deficiencies, our shortcomings. Hashem, give us the self-awareness to see to it that our integrity is for real, our motivations are for real. And then, of course, make it happen.